Okay, we're going to take a look at hooking up this circuit here using the lab volt equipment. Okay, so when you go and you hook it up, remember the first thing is you're not going to hook up these voltmeters right here until the end because they're just in parallel. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to try and do is I'm going to try and create a series circuit going through an amp meter, going through a resistor, going through an amp meter, going through a resistor, and then coming back. Okay, so that's what we're going to try and set up first. And then this is a 200 ohm and a 400 ohm, and then later we'll be adding the 600 ohm. So if I come to my lab volt setup, what I've got here, it's a little bit different there. So we got a power supply right here. And I want to be sure to turn that on. I think that's on right there. And then here it's got my amp meters. Here's my amp meter 1. Here are my voltmeters. Here's my resistors, okay? So it looks a little bit different, but just be aware that this is an amp meter right here. Here's the second amp meter, third amp meter, fourth amp meter, etc. So we take a look at this and we start working it. We'll see that we are running from power into an amp meter right there. So that's the first wire that we need to connect. So I come right here and I run from the power right here, 4, up into the common of the amp meter. That should do it right there. I have to get that out of the way. It's going to get in our way a little bit. And then going, pull this up a little bit too. Why not? We can. There you go. And so we're then going out of an amp meter and we are going into the 200 ohm resistor. So I come right here, I'm coming out of the amp meter right here. I can go there and I can go into, that was my 200 ohm resistor that I set right there. Let's try that again. I think I can go to this one. There we go. I'll pull this up out of the way a little bit if I can. Okay, so there's that one. Getting a little crazy on me. Okay, and then if I go back to here, you see I am coming out of the resistor and I'm going into the next amp meter. So there's the next one right there, coming out of the resistor right here, and I'm going into the next amp meter, which is be the next common right below it right there, okay? And then if I come here, I'm coming out of that amp meter and I'm going to the next resistor, okay? So coming out of the amp meter here, apparently I'm going to the next resistor, so there it is there. And then the other resistor right here, well, that goes to back to power. The other resistor goes back to power. I'm going to come right here. This resistor right here goes back to my power down there. Okay, so there's my series circuit right there. But now I need to figure out how to add this parallel in. So this parallel, I can either pick off this resistor or I can pick off this amp meter. They're both the same, and I'm going to the next amp meter. So I'm just going to go from amp meter, the left of the amp meter, to the left of the amp meter, I think is what I'm going to do. Okay, so if I come right here, that was amp meter 2 right there, and so I'm going to take this, and I have to get this out of the way in order for me to do what I want to do. That goes from this amp meter to that amp meter. Let me take it. It's kind of, let's see if I can swing it out of the way. So I just went from the left of the second amp meter, and now I've started a third amp meter. Okay, so I went from the left of the second amp meter, and I just jumped it down to this next amp meter. This amp meter comes out and goes to the 600 ohm resistor. So I come out of the amp meter here. It's going to go to this next resistor right there. Okay, and then what happens? This resistor right here, it comes back to either the 400 ohm resistor or it comes back to 6. Either one of these are at the same potential. So I'm either going to the right of the other resistor, which the problem is I kind of forgot which one was the left and the right. You know, should have been marking them the top and the bottom, the left and the right. But I do know that this one just does come all the way back to 6. Okay, so that'll work like that. I can just bring it all the way back to 6 like that. So at this point, I've got my circuit built. Okay, I now need to add my voltmeters. So my first voltmeter here goes between 4 and 6. Yeah, I could either hook it up on this amp meter, but it might be just easier to hook it up to 4 and 6. So that's my first voltmeter. So I come here, and my voltmeters are over here. So I just come here and I just run this one to 6, and I take this one and I run it to 4. Then I'm in business. I'm gonna have to try and move these wires out of the way a little bit because they'll get in the way when I try and run the next one. But there was 4 and 6 there. Okay. my next voltmeter. Let's see where that is. My next voltmeter looks like it's going from 4. I can go with that. There's 4 to a voltmeter. Let's do that. That's pretty easy. So once again, here's 4. Oops, doesn't like when I do that. So I guess I've got to run it here. There's to 4. Okay, I got that. I want to be sure this wire's out of my way so I can get in there. Okay, so I went to 4. And now I need to go to either the other side of resistor 1, okay, or I can go to the other side of these amp meters, the common amp meters, because they're all the same, right? So if I come out of this voltmeter, I either got to find that resistor or this amp meter or this amp meter, are all the same. I'm going to shoot for these amp meters right here because I'm pretty sure where I remember where those are. So if I come out of this voltmeter right here, I believe that my common for my amp meters was right here. And there's my little common right there. See that? So I got the common between these two and that one and that one. So I've got the amp meter there now. Okay. So now that one's good. Now I need this last voltmeter. So this voltmeter, that's the same point. So I'm going to just run this voltmeter to that jumper to that common. It's getting kind of crazy. Let's see if I can get in there and move some of these wires out of the way. So it was going to be this here, and that's also going to these commons, to these right there. So there's that. Okay, so that would be one side of the voltmeter. The other side of the voltmeter goes back to either these resistors or back to 6. I'm just going to take that voltmeter back to 6. So the other side of that voltmeter is buried way in here. Let's see if I can get these wires out of the way. So there it is right there. I want this one here, and that was going back to 6. So that's how I did it. I just added one wire at a time. Now we want to go ahead and test it. What I can do is I can check. I got my items set right here, and I can run some leads between 4 and 6. Normally you were supposed to take 4 and 6 and put them into here, but I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to connect these up to here and up to here. And I was supposed to, with these settings, if you remember from your lab, you're supposed to get 440 ohms. I'm getting 439.9 ohms, so it looks like my simulation is working pretty good right there, okay? Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to turn on my power there, so I've got power. And then if I come and I pull up my meter, and once again, I can refresh it. And I can see that I'm getting 203 volts. I'm supposed to get 200, so I could turn this down maybe just a little bit. It's hard to do. Maybe right to there. Pull up my meter in again, and I can do continuously refresh it. And there I'm at 200 volts. And my voltage drop on the first one is 91. My voltage on the other one is 109. And here's my current draws through each amp, 4, 5, 2, 7, and 1, 8. And as you run through the lab, you can expect and see that you'll get numbers pretty similar to this to what you're seeing right here. And you'll note that, this voltmeter right here is measuring these two resistors. So I don't need a second voltmeter on here because this voltmeter does both of these resistors. This voltmeter is doing this resistor. And then this voltmeter is doing, the entire circuit, if you can understand how that's hooked up. So that's why we don't have another voltmeter here. And then you can see that the amp meters, it looks like the current comes through this first amp meter, and then it splits, and that would come back together. So I would expect that, the amount of current coming here is divided among those two right there. So let's just take a look at that. If you look at my currents, if you add 0.182 and 0.273, and it's pretty close. It's right there at 0.55. So this 5.5 splits between the two. And so that's just a quick summary of what you're doing in the lab of, maybe some strategies for hooking it up and testing it up.